it gets worse at night.
Oh,
It's going to be worse. Phone internet or not, like it's just the internet is just not as good around this time. I guess because more people are online. I'm
yeah.
actually not sure of the reason, but
I was just asking in general. It's not like bad or anything right now. I was just kind of wondering.
yeah.
Okay, so I started recording. It looks like you see my video, right?
Yeah.
All right, looks good.
All right. Well, welcome to this episode of Amateur Theory. I think we're on episode 5 now. And today we're going to talk about The Happening. And we haven't really talked about this on the podcast at this point, but we're doing this in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is, we come from different countries, but it's both of our countries are one of the more affected of the of this. Yours more in the past than now, but mine is currently the number one in cases, I believe.
And also,
but we,
uh, our countries were both affected pretty hard. One handled it very well. Another did not handle it as well.
Let's not get too political here, but the point was that part of the reason for choosing this movie, The Happening, is because it is it's a pandemic of a sort, right? We thought it was topical, so we wanted to kind of delve into this, and it hits our MO of picking older bad movies. So let's get into it. So I kind of gave it away. I didn't think this movie was very good. It was better than some of the other ones we've seen. Like, you could tell that there was, like, some competency going in, but there's just, like, some flaws with it that, like, make it still a bad movie in my eyes. But, like, what were your general thoughts?
So when it comes to this so bad it's good thing, I'm pretty comfortable with putting it in there because, like, there are parts of this movie that I think are hilarious. Like, there are just certain aspects, like the acting, for example. Like, Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel are hilarious in this movie. Just like, what? Yeah, no. Just watching this movie about people killing themselves and
every time they brought up like science or math, like he's like a science teacher and the math teacher, I swear they're just like using science words and did nothing to do with what they meant. He's like, hypothesis. What is the probability? I figured it out. Like, they're just words. Like, there's no meaning or whatever. They're just trying to say smart things. And they mention it over and over. Like, he's like a science guy. Like 10 minutes in, like it's like very apparent. And then his math teacher bud, they keep on talking about that. Like not in any kind of like smart way. Not in like, look at the difference. It's kind of just like, oh, you're talking math again. That's right. I said the word probability. Like it's just kind of like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny too.
Yeah, he just starts the first time you see Mark Wahlberg, he's giving like a science lecture in a high school or whatever. He's like, so why do you think the bees disappeared,
it's so unscientific. Dude, actually,
like, what do you think happened to the bees, guys?
And like the conclusion is like, some things are just too much for science. We'll never know. That was like the point of that as a science teacher. I think at one point he talks about like the scientific backing of mood rings. That's how unscientific this movie gets. I thought that was kind of funny.
It's like, okay. Well, I want to talk about the very opening scene because like this tipped me off immediately. I was like, oh no, because so we're in like Central Park, I think. 2 women are sitting on a bench. One is reading a book. The one reading the book turns to her friend and goes, I can't remember what part I'm at. What's going on here? The one reading the book, her friend who's not reading the book, tells her the part she's at the book. Like, it was...
That was just a normal conversation.
It's like if I'd seen this in like some like surrealistic like David Lynch type thing, I would think it's genius. But I don't think that's what they were going for. It's just
there's so many moments. Yeah, where like it was supposed to be like normal conversation. That was just like very weird. Like just a little bit later, the joke. Remember that all the construction workers are telling a joke, and like joke makes no sense. Like it's just like a super bizarre I think the punchline is that he does a Jamaican accent, and everyone's just like, ah, funny. Like, but like, that's not the point of the movie. You know, these are just like little moments before like the scary stuff happens, and we'll get into the scary stuff. But it's funny. It's as many bad movies do. They just can't figure out like normal dialogue between people. Like they just can't do small talk. They don't understand what it is. But anyway,
like no one in this movie feels like a real person. It's very like
everyone's a caricature. Like it really is. They don't meet any normal people at all. Just weirdos. One thing. So in the as I do for my do some preliminary Wikipedia reading before I go into these podcasts. I try to avoid reviews usually.
Okay.
Just so I have my own opinion, but I do some Wikipedia reading. Apparently, I don't know if Shyamalan was his intention or if this is just what he said afterwards after all the bad reviews came out. But his claim is that this was meant to be like a campy kind of silly movie. Like he was trying to make a B movie. That was his goal. So like, do you think he succeeded at making like a good B movie? Like in that context, does that make the movie good?
Well, I mean, it's an entertaining B film, that's for sure, I think. But it's kind of like with The Room, where like afterwards, like Tommy Wiseau was like, "Oh, well, it was always meant to be a black comedy," and I'm like, No, it wasn't. Like you tried to make a serious dramedy and screwed it up pretty bad.
This movie doesn't like so there's movies like what's it called? Cabin Fever or The Cabin.
Oh, is that there's Cabin Fever and there's Cabin in the Woods.
I'm thinking of Cabin in the Woods. But there are movies that like you can tell don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're very just kind of like very campy and that's the point. This movie didn't feel like that. Like when you're watching it, it feels like it's trying to be this like thriller, like this like not a comedy film. Like I didn't seem like it's intention.
I mean, there were parts
it does come off as fun.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just M. Shyamalan is a genius, and like he's just managed to like figure out. I don't know.
If his point or if his intention was to confuse people, just to put them like, is this like what am I watching? Then yeah, I guess. Mission accomplished.
There are some moments in the movie that and eventually I'm going to stop doing this, but I'm going to say it again for this time. Spoiler cast. Spoiler, every episode is going to be a spoiler cast. Maybe I should just have like some words at the beginning say that. But like every single character that they meet is like kind of comical. Like the guy who's like obsessed with hot dogs and like the plant. I guess it's kind of like silly, right? Like he's like, "You're really into hot dogs, right?" Like he seems kind of wacky. So it's like, it doesn't seem like a super serious character. And then the old lady that they meet near the end is like totally off her rocker. And again, like it's like how much of that is like straddling the line between comedy and thriller? Like I laughed when she like tried to bust her head through the window. I thought that was like super funny. I don't know if it was trying to be funny, but like it was funny because she's such a ridiculous person. And so like her doing this ridiculous person doing this like totally ridiculous thing. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I was laughing when she's like confronting Marky Mark. She's like, "You guys are talking to each other in your rooms. Like, you're gonna kill me, aren't you?" And Marky Mark's like, "What? No, what?" He says it in the most like suspicious way possible, even though they weren't actually planning on doing anything. Right. Okay, wait, have we gone over the basic plot yet? Even
I don't even know.
Okay,
so the basic plot is that there is a the happening. So it's unclear about what is causing this, but just people are suddenly killing themselves. Like it's and when it happens, in the opening scene, you see it happen for the first time. And there's like a couple hall markers. This doesn't always happen, but it's kind of inconsistent in this way. But like it at least in the aspect in the first scene, everyone freezes and then some people start walking backwards. That's like one of the symptoms, which I also thought was hilarious, by the way. Every single time someone walked backwards, I was just like... But anyway, it's ominous, like it's scary. Everyone stops and starts walking backwards, right? And then people... it just sounds dumb. But then, what the big scary part is that everyone starts killing themselves.
Yeah, and the nearest convenient means possible. So like,
yeah, so like there's lots of... I think this movie was just an excuse to come up with like different ways that people... That was every single scene in this movie. I feel like was just a setup for some like fantastic suicide scene.
But
like some of the things were so ridiculous, like that the mom who was on the phone with her daughter, and then decided to put the phone on speakerphone. Like why? Right? Like what? Who? What? So the mother is like, "You're sounding weird, honey." Like obviously she's about to kill herself because that's what everyone has done in this movie. But like right at that moment, instead of like taking it private or like, she just puts it on speakerphone for like this giant crowd to hear what's happening to her daughter, and then you can like hear her daughter die over the phone. And like that's just one scene, but I feel like every scene is kind of like that. Like there's always some excuse for why there's this like giant spectacle of a death, and it's just like one of those over another. Whether it's like someone running themselves over with a lawnmower or getting their arms ripped off by a lion. Like there's just like no one just dies normal, right? It's always got to be like this like crazy suicide.
But see,
which it's supposed to be scary, but again, it's just like so farcical. Like you can't take it serious.
And this is the thing, even like like suicide showcases or whatever, like if you can't come for the movie for that, like let's say like you're a big like horror like gore fan or something, like you want to see like crazy deaths, like the movie doesn't really like hit that nerve that well because the movie's not super like
it's so
gory.
With the,
yeah,
like someone shot themselves in the head. They were like, I'll never like this scene really sticks out to me. He got shot in the head, and like normally if someone shoots themselves in the head, like realistically, that's, you know, there's like brain spilling out. There was like a tiny red hole in his forehead, and it was like squirting blood, like a foot out, like like, and that was the scene.
It doesn't even squirt out that well. I swear, I remember just if there's a hole in someone's head, like there's just a hole and maybe like a tiny trickle of blood, and it's
obviously gore wasn't the focus, right? That's not what they were trying to do, and that does kind of like what are you trying to do with this movie, right? Like so you have these ridiculous deaths. Again, we're talking lions pulling people's arms off, kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of like theatrics that are happening. But when that happens, like, are you going to go like, so that seems like really gory, but they really try to like when things are about to get really hairy, like usually the camera ducks out, or like you just hear like a noise, like, ah, you know,
like even like the
really
lawnmower death, like the lawnmower running the, like that sounds like gruesome and crazy and like, whoa, but like, it's not. Like you see it go over him a little and then just the camera cuts away. And it's, it reminded me, there's this Japanese film that came out in the early 2000s called Suicide Club, which is kind of the same premise. People are just killing themselves and no one knows why. But that movie like just goes like hardcore, like Japanese insane. Like, because in that, like at the beginning, like all these like schoolgirls, I think, like jump in front of a train and there's blood just like whoosh, like covering the windows of like the subway train, and it's just like insanity, totally off the rails, no pun intended. And like I like, and that's kind of like a spectacle. Like I think like that insanity just fits like the insanity of like this premise where people are killing themselves like more. But I realized that's not what Shyamalan was trying to go for.
Well, I think Shyamalan, this is his only rated R movie. Like normally he's like really zeroes in on that PG-13, and I think this was just shot like a PG-13 movie, and like any kind of like gore or whatever was just an afterthought. Like, well, I guess we have to have some of that in. This is like a hardcore movie.
Like this is
that was not the idea
at all. Like
no.
Like other than like
honestly, like
there's like hardly any language. There's no sex.
Right, like, I wouldn't have even like batted an eye. Like I wouldn't have been. It's almost weirder that it's R. It's like Halo rated M, right? Like no one understood why, but it just was. So yeah, I mean this is as far as like I guess you wouldn't call this a slasher. it's a
No,
thriller.
no.
But like in terms of like this kind of vein of movie, this is like on the tame end for sure.
Yeah. Um. Where where were we at before we got yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
well, we're talking about the plot, but like, what plot is there
Oh
besides that?
yeah. Well, just that
Right? Like,
people
there's
are
not
killing
like some
themselves.
like I guess there's the
There's
love
toxin
story.
in the air, and they're trying to like somehow escape that. And like
Yeah. So like,
they think it's from plants because the hot dog dude says like he thinks it
everyone's
might be plants. So Mark Wahlberg's like, huh, plants. And then like there are scenes like where they're like in a field and things will like start getting windy. Like they try to
it
like
was like,
outrun the winds.
see, I thought they were setting up the movie because he had that mood ring, right? And he was like talking about like the electromagnetic whatever comes out of the human body and how we can like, and then plants can communicate with each other in weird ways. Like, oh yeah, trees talk to bushes, and again, I just want to stress how unscientific this like scientific person was supposed to be. But
Dude, it's like
anyway,
chakras, man. It's like some Naruto type stuff. Like
but anyway, I thought they were setting it up like because this is Shyamalan, so I was expecting like a twist at the end. That like maybe the reason that they haven't died, like the main characters, is because they had the right mood or something, and the mood ring was going to play into that. And I thought that, and like even though that kind of would have been dumb, like from at least it would have like been some kind of payoff. Instead, it ends by just like there's like they so the scary wind comes out, right, and like it's insinuating like the pollen's coming, and like everyone around them, they were like this with this old lady we talked about earlier. She just killed herself, right? And so like they're in a situation where like we're definitely gonna die. We're in the field, like the thing is coming, but then it just revealed like oh, and then it just ended, and that was it. Like they didn't do anything to stop the spore, whatever. It just stopped, and like it had to be explained afterwards in like a TV segment, like and at exactly 8:54 p.m. the everything just was just fine now, and like
and the guy asks
it's
him like
so bizarre.
it's like, well, scientist man, why do you think this happened? What are the explanations? And he's like, well, it's nature. You can't explain it.
It's like, oh, it tied that in because he talked about that at the
Yeah.
beginning.
It's like, see what you did, Shyamalan. Very clever trophy for you.
But yeah, there's like that is kind of like a if this movie wasn't so silly, and again, I think I agree with you. The so bad it's good. That's where any charm to be had in this movie is from that. Like it's just kind of silly and it's kind of
I
funny.
love Mark Wahlberg in this movie and Zoe Deschanel. Like they just, I don't know what direction they received from Shyamalan for their acting, but they are terrible in this
No, I
movie.
think that they just were told because honestly, like it's like classic Mark Wahlberg and classic Joey Chanel as like I usually expect them, but they're just like usually comedy actors. Like, well, honestly, like it's I usually expect them in comedy, and they just kind of act the same as they do in all the comedy films. Like it's like they're just doing their thing. It's the Mark Wahlberg thing and the Zoe Deschanel thing, and they just put it in this like crazy movie. That's how I saw it.
I mean, Marky Mark's like done like good dramatic roles before. I think, like say like with Boogie Nights or The Departed.
Yeah,
but I mean,
this wasn't that.
no, no, this
This
nowhere
is more
near the
like
same caliber.
like a
of
bad
film.
teacher or like that kind of thing. Like that's kind of what you're getting here.
And Zoe Deschanel just always has this like really wide-eyed, like incredulous look.
Her thing is just like she's bewildered all the time and like kind of like emotionally like unstable. That's her whole character. I like how like every single character had to weigh in on their relationship. They like the relationship is almost like more important than the other things going on. Like it's like that's the real plot of the movie is that they have relationship problems, and it's but yeah, like the old lady, this crazy old lady, right? She like even at a certain moment she's like, so what's going on between you two? And like it just every moment someone has to like weigh in on how like oh you guys are having drama and like people are dying and all this other stuff is happening, but like that's important.
Well,
Um,
Zoe Deschanel's
I mean,
reveal is that she said she's like, I lied to you once. I went and ate dessert with the dude, like instead of like where I told
very
you I was.
undeveloped, yeah.
And then
And then it's
later,
resolved with like yeah.
and then later, Mark Wahlberg tries to like, I think, get back at someone. He's like, I was in a pharmacy store, and there was this really cute pharmacist behind the counter, so I went and asked for cough syrup.
And I mean, I think that was supposed to be a little comical moment.
Oh, it's still.
But then, right after he said that story, Zoe Deschanel's eyes started tearing up and was like, "Thank you."
Like a completely super.
Which honestly, like,
cough syrup.
Honestly, I'll admit, I found that kind of sweet, that moment. It was funny, but I thought that was actually one of the better parts. And admittedly, the payoff for their relationship is the only payoff you get. Because like normally, I think I was gonna like talk about this earlier, but like normally you expect the protagonist, like the good guys, to solve the problem, right? Like there's a problem, and then your hero solves it, right? There's like problems, and then but that's not in this movie. There's a problem, and they just survive. Like they just kind of, not even by doing anything particularly intelligent. Like at a certain point, they definitely would have died if they just hadn't been super lucky that the virus or whatever ends at 8:54 p.m. instead of 8:53 p.m. Like that was the only reason they got out alive. So the only real payoff you get is the relationship payoff, which I mean kind of happens. Like at the end, it's all very happy, and then like she reveals that she like is a baby's on the way, and it's they love each other, and like not even to knock the romance part, like it was fine. There was no part of it that I thought was particularly like terrible or badly done, but it just felt weird, like the whole time, like that was the real movie. Right, like all this crazy suicide, whatever. Like, no, the real movie was the friendships we made along the way. Like, that's kind of how it felt. But yeah,
the real friends were the suicides we saw along the way.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, is this the worst movie ever? Like, it's just as far as like, I think it's like competently enough directed. There was no moments where you didn't know what was going on or was like overly confusing. Like, and there is kind of like things that drive the plot from one thing to the next. The things that make this movie like bad is the script, like just the talking, like every time they talk, and then the acting is just goofy. Like it's just very like it does feel like a B movie. If M. Night Shyamalan was trying to go for that B movie feel, I mean he hit it. Actually, like in terms of like he kind of got away with it. And like you said, you thought it was entertaining. I thought this movie was entertaining too. I wasn't bored.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's the worst thing you could say to a movie. If a movie's boring, that's the worst thing. It's like whatever you need to do to make it fun, even if it means sacrificing some of the plot integrity or like internal logic of the characters, like okay, whatever. If it's all in the service of entertainment, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. Just maybe entertainment, not the way the director planned it. Or he did say he wanted to make a B film. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't know what to believe here, but yeah.
I do kind of want to watch another Shyamalan. Like maybe next time we'll do The Last Airbender or something.
Oh, Shyamalan in and of himself is a whole topic for discussion. Like this.
Yeah, he's a
very interesting track record, this guy. Yeah, the Happening, I would recommend it. I'd give it a watch. It's pretty fun, and it's not like painful in the way like Battlefield Earth is.
Yeah, it's like some of these other bad movies. Like if you don't like bad movies, I don't know if I could recommend it to you. Like as a normal movie watcher, because like there's just some parts of it are just so bad, and like I enjoy that. We both enjoy it. That's why we're doing this. Why we're talking about these bad movies. We keep on subjecting ourselves to watching more bad movies, but not everyone does. This movie is like good enough, just as like, and it's competent as a movie that like you could watch it even if you didn't appreciate bad movies. I don't know if you'd come out liking this movie then if you can't appreciate those kind of things, but like I don't know if you'd hate it either.
Yeah.
And it's like none of the shots are off, or like there's no continuity problems.
Oh,
like,
the filmmaking is very competent. Like
yeah,
it's
it's a Hollywood typical Yeah.
So yeah, The Happening. Check it out if you're stuck at home during the trying to avoid
I guess
COVID.
we'll end on that. Admittedly, I think there's less to talk about this movie and some of the other ones because it is not as bad, so there's less to mention. But let's talk about how did this watching this in the midst of coronavirus, that being a thing, did that affect your viewing of it at all? Did
No,
you draw those parallels? No.
no, not really. Because, well, I mean, in this movie, the situation it takes place in like the span of like 24 hours. I think like it just starts
really?
and then it ends.
Where that
Yeah,
entire movie was supposed to be in a day?
it's like a day or two. Like it does not last
Wow.
long at all. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
huh. I missed that. But I mean it kind of makes sense. Like, I'm thinking about the pace of the movie now. I mean, there's the part where I guess they sleep at the lady's house.
yeah.
But that might be the first time they sleep. Like,
Yeah,
it might
that's
have
like
been
the first night in
day.
the movie, I think.
That's
And then in the next
interesting.
morning, it all gets resolved. So
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, okay. I I thought of it at least initially in the setup of the movie. It was kind of there, but admittedly by 30 minutes in, I wasn't thinking about it at all anymore. The similarities weren't super comparable, except for the fact that there is something in the air that might be
yeah,
bad. Right.
which is
So
kind of what
I don't know how apt
all
our
viruses are. That's what most, I think, virus situations are like.
I just as soon as they started talking about the guy's like, oh yeah, trees and the grass and they can all talk to each other, and that was like a major point of the film. And then they were worried about what the whole thing was so silly to me that the the thing only happens when there's enough people around,
Yeah, which I
right?
didn't.
Which didn't make any
Yeah, I
sense.
didn't get that.
There was no mechanism there. They explained oh yeah, when lots of people are around, this happened. That's why I thought they were gonna pivot to the mood thing. So at least that would have made more sense to me. But literally, it's 5 people, no problems. 8 people, now you have a problem. And even that went out the window by the end because then the old lady was by herself and she died. So there was just no logic to it at all. Anyway, that's nitpicky. Don't yeah, don't watch this to think that don't watch it for that.
Oh,
Don't
turn
watch
your
it
brain off.
thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Any of
This
these
is
movies, you
a
got to turn
dumb
your brain
movie.
off.
So yeah. Overall, I we can both recommend it.
Yeah, fun times to be had. All right, that was Amateur Theory signing out. See you guys later.